And it's great to get 40 Days for Life going. So I'll show you with the vision and mission of our organisation, what we do, and some of the great stories from around the world, and hopefully give you the inspiration to not only understand, visualise, and then implement 40 Days for Life here in Galway. And we need it here in Ireland. And we've been going over 10 years in the United Kingdom. We've seen 7 abortion centres close. We've seen over 1,000 babies saved from abortion. So it's been an incredible journey. And so I'll give you the very, very basics, beginnings of what 40 Days for Life is, and then stories from all around the world of how this has been a grace-filled, this has been God's work. And I think we'll go over the problem of abortion and how 40 Days for Life can be a solution to the problem of abortion too. So what is 40 Days for Life? It's a focused pro-life campaign with a vision to access God's power through prayer, fasting and peaceful vigil to end abortion. So with prayer, we can move mountains, and prayer and fasting, John Paul II said, was the most powerful force in human history. So our mission is to evangelize everybody, and it's to bring together the body of Christ in a spirit of unity for a focused 40-day campaign of prayer, fasting and peaceful vigil. So there's 3 parts. It's a really simple campaign, but it's effective because it works. So the 3 parts of 40 days, number 1, prayer and fasting, inviting people of faith throughout the city and across the country. 3 million people in Ireland, lots of chances to reach everyone. Sean and I were praying outside the hospital this morning. There's probably at least 500 to 1,000 people must have seen our witness, and our witness is so powerful. People think the consciences are engaged and see what's happening. So to join together to pray and fast for an end to abortion publicly, normally outside the abortion facility or hospital or prominent public place. So that's the peaceful prayer vigil, to stand for 12 hours a day for a 40-day time period of public witness outside the abortion centre. And then community outreach. How do we do community outreach? That's taking a positive, upbeat pro-life message to every part of the city through media, reaching the churches, reaching schools, universities, petition drives, public visibility. We have the referendum here in Ireland, so a lot of community outreach has already been done in this country. So this is the problem of abortion in the United Kingdom. So we have over 200,000 abortions in the United Kingdom, where I'm from, every single year. And I don't know the exact figures of Ireland, but certainly it's in the hundreds and thousands now that abortion has been established here in Ireland. We've got teenage pregnancies at record levels, and many people are not warned about the psychological, spiritual, physical complications that can happen as a result of abortion. Most NHS operations, you have to have informed consent. You have to say, by the way, this operation, something might happen. That's not the case with abortion in Britain, that people aren't warned about some of the possible consequences. It's just a free rein. Further to the problem, we've got this national media has taken a position overwhelmingly in favour of abortion, saturating the airwaves, just like RTE here, with biased information, casting pro-lifers in a negative light. That's the entire national media, and we've got alternative media and Christian media. I was on Grit Media yesterday, but the media, definitely a problem too. And not only that, we've got a challenge with the Christian churches as well, because many have fallen silent about abortion, becoming either apathetic or indifferent, failing to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So in the Old Testament, we read about rescuing those being led to the slaughter, being a voice for the voiceless, and we need to change this problem. How do we get from this problem to the solution with abortion? That seems a big problem. We've got a lot of abortions, and let's say that a woman was out at sea, and she was with a young baby, and she's on a boat, and she falls off the boat and falls into the sea, and we're all on the boat here together. What would we do in that situation? She's out at sea and she's waving for help and she's holding her child with her. What would we do? Would we contact our politician and tell them, oh, by the way, there's this woman out at sea and she's just about to, the life of her baby's at stake and she's just about to lose her child? Would we write a letter to our MP, our Member of Parliament, and say, there's this big problem, maybe you need to sort it out? Would we contact somebody else, or would we just sit our hands and shrug our hands up in the air and say, meh, apathy and indifference? Of course not. We would do everything we could to rescue that child and woman from being drowning in the sea. And how does that situation change from the situation of abortion where the life of the baby is in danger? Will we sit there apathetically? Will we do absolutely everything we can to provide a solution to rescue the life of that child? Of course we would. And how does that situation change from the abortion situation today? Not at all. It's exactly the same. And so that's why we need the problem. This is why we need a solution to the crisis of abortion in this country. So our culture has become godless. It's turned away from God. And this could be a moment of despair, of hands up in the air, despair. What can we possibly do? We've lost the referendum. But Scripture reminds us in 2 Chronicles 7:14, which is a foundational Scripture passage for 40 Days for Life. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. So in other words, God in the Old Testament says, if you turn and seek my face, with all your heart and turn from your wicked ways, I will hear your prayers from heaven. I will forgive your sin and will heal your land as well. So if we pray to God that he will hear our prayers, that he will answer our prayers. We don't know how God hears our prayers and how he responds to our prayers, but what's for sure, the memorare, we know that our prayers are not in vain as well. And this is why we've seen such wonderful things happen with 40 Days for Life. Not only in the UK, I've been all around the world to 30 countries and taken this mission to other countries. And when we've seen the same things happen in all the different countries, and we've seen babies' lives saved, we've seen the abortion rate decline. The first campaign, the abortion rate declined by 28% in Bryan, College Station, Texas. The abortion facility is now our international headquarters in Texas, which is abortion-free right now. After Roe versus Wade, many of the states in America are abortion-free. Exactly the opposite to what's happened here in Ireland. We've recruited hundreds, even thousands of new people into the pro-life movement for the very first time. And we've helped lead post-abortive women and men into proven healing programs as well, developing dynamic leaders to increase the future impact of pro-life efforts. Because essentially, we're on a mission. So to understand, this is one of the most important missions in the church. John Paul II said the pro-life mission is, you are doing the most important work on earth, he said to Father Paul Marks, head of Human Life International. So if we're on a mission, God has entrusted this to us to save lives, to inspire hearts and minds, to impact eternal souls. And our mission is to evangelise everyone. With Sean this morning, we were witnessing to the whole of the street. It's a busy street, a cross-section with traffic lights. We're there to witness to everybody. And if we are teachers, it's because we're witnesses. And so so our prayer is, Lord, how can I be a channel of your grace? How can I be a channel of your peace? How can I do your work for the pro-life movement? And so we had a teacher come to our vigil. He prayed for an hour and said, Lord, how can I witness in my own life? He prayed for an hour at the vigil, and then he went back to his school and he gave a pro-life message to 500, 1,000 pupils. That was just one person praying at the vigil for an hour, and he witnessed to 1,000 pupils with a powerful, strong pro-life message to all of them. So our prayer is, Lord, use my talents and abilities so that I can give greater glory to your kingdom in the way that you specifically want me to. So you might be a prayer volunteer, you might do community outreach if you're an outward-going person. But our mission is to evangelise everyone. And how can we be a channel of God's grace? How can we do his will in our lives? So I don't have the answer for that, and that's for your own prayers and discernment to realise how you can do God's will. And it might be being a go-between, helping lead a post-abortive man or woman. We had pavement counsellors in London, and they reached 4 post-abortive women in 2 hours. So we stand in the street talking to people, handing out leaflets to every person. One of our volunteers in Ealing handed out leaflets to probably 100 people in an hour, reached 100 people, and some of them used the thumbs up and some of them used the middle finger, but that was the response that he got. And he was unafraid. He wasn't afraid of what other people thought of him. If he was there going, I don't want to offend people, I don't want to upset people, he wouldn't be ready for mission, because this is a controversial topic and it's a Marmite issue. Either people love you or they hate you. And when we get over ourselves and our own ego and pride and all the rest of it, then God can actually use us and work with us, and we can reach the people who most need help. 20% of our leaders in North America are post-abortive women, and they know the pain, the hurt, the burden they had from their own abortion. But God can use them because they know the pain and the hurt, and they're willing to share this mission because they know what's at stake. And therefore, it's beautiful when you see those people reaching out to a similar people in a similar situation in life, helping and healing the very people who they were maybe 10, 20 years ago. That's how God can use us for tremendous good and for tremendous benefits in the future. So here's some of the other ways in which we can use benefits, the positive solution to the crisis of abortion. We can bring the churches together, getting them together in a historic display of unity and action. And last night in Dublin, they're saying, the churches are so apathetic and indifferent, and some people will be with us and some people won't be, and so what? We have to work with the people who are with us and build up from there. We can't curse the darkness and we can't say, oh, things are so awful. We have to imagine what can creatively be possible. We can get a buzz going in the media. It's great when we get positive stories, even from the biased BBC and the Guardian and the rest of it. They have to cover us, and we get positive stories in the secular media. It seems impossible, but it does actually happen. We get increased financial efforts for future pro-life efforts, and we make the sanctity of human life crucial throughout community and upcoming local and national elections too. So why 40 days? Well, throughout salvation history, God has used a 40-day time period to bring immense spiritual change. So whether it was Jesus in the desert for 40 days during Lent, whether it was Nineveh, where Nineveh was transformed when Jonah went there, and the city was given 40 days to remain faithful. The disciples were transformed after spending 40 days with Jesus following the resurrection. So what can God accomplish? What can God accomplish when everyone comes together in unites together with 40 days of prayer, fasting, pulling out all the steps to end the violence of abortion? Well, I've got no idea what can happen here in Galway, but some of the grace-filled ways in which God has worked, we've seen babies that have been saved from abortion. We've seen post-abortion men and women leading into healing programs for the very first time. The outreach has been absolutely incredible. In London, we've reached thousands of people, and we've had a lot of kickback from the government, from pro-abortion activists, but that's been a exciting part of the spiritual battle in which we've been involved in. So across the world, United States, we saw the end of Roe versus Wade. We've had over 1,000 cities take part in 40 days, over 1 million volunteers cumulatively over the last 15 years. And now we've saved over 23,000 lives from abortion. These figures are out of date but now we're at over 23,000 lives saved from abortion. And many of those have happened in our campaigns in London. I'll tell you about some of those stories. We've also seen 131 abortion centres close and 242 abortion workers leave also. So getting positive media stories, I've mentioned that already. Many of our volunteers are first-time volunteers, and this is the very first pro-life activity that they've done. So to actually go and stand and pray where abortions happen, rather than abstractly campaigning, we're going to the place where abortions actually happen and taking a stand. And when we do that, this is touching the issue in a real and tangible way. Now, some people say, well, what difference is prayer going to make? Prayer is foundational to everything. And when we pray, miracles can happen, as they do, as I've just mentioned. 92% of people say they experience spiritual growth as a result of participating, and people turn to God with hope as well. So sometimes God can work on our own heart first before we can reach other people. And then suddenly when we're ready for mission, and that's when we can reach thousands of people. So this is the crucial bit, how you can make a difference. And the whole point will be a call tomorrow. But the whole point of today is, to turn to God. How can you make a difference for the pro-life movement? Pray and ask God to show you the unique role that he has for you in the 40 Days for Life effort. We need prayer volunteers. We need as many prayer volunteers as we can possibly get. We need vigil people. We need people to come and pray and stand outside the hospital or abortion centre as a sign of hope. And we need people doing community outreach. This might be, if you're an outgoing person, this might be your speciality. Help others to build a growing awareness of the humanity of the unborn child. Anything that helps to build a growing awareness of the humanity of the unborn child. We've got Unplanned as a film. We've got an apologetics training called What to Say When. You can do door-to-door, as people are familiar here in Ireland. There's many ways in which you can do community outreach. You can have a stall in public. You can engage in many different ways. And often the people that most need to hear the message are the hardest people to reach, but that can be the most spiritually efficacious outreach as well. So This is how to build up momentum. Sign up to the prayer vigil, volunteer to do community outreach, attend the events also. So this is Leeds in England during the last campaign. And on the very first day of the vigil, a couple came up with their baby and said, "Thank you so much for being here. Last year, we were scheduled for an abortion in Marystopes in Leeds, but because you were here, we chose life for our unborn child. And here is the baby to show you the evidence of the spiritual fruits of your work." And if you could just imagine for a moment, there's one person in Galway who's in a crisis pregnancy right now, who's alone, who's afraid, it doesn't want to tell their parents because they don't want to get the parents involved, and they're really considering going for an abortion secretly, silently, and that this person in 1 to 2 weeks is going to go ahead with that abortion should nothing else happen. And this is the one person that in exactly the same way that you might be able to reach through your friends or network or church or whatever it might be, even standing in the street praying. You never know how God can use you to save a life, and that he can use you as a vessel of his grace to help save lives and inspire those people around you. We've got over 4 million post-abortive women in the United Kingdom. So every day there's so many opportunities to reach people who've been affected by abortion. Some of them, are deeply traumatized, have mental health issues. Other people less affected. But post-abortion healing is such a powerful ministry. One of our leaders in England said that during the retreats, it was the most amount of grace that they'd seen in the church. They'd have people come dressed all as black, as like goth. By the end of the retreat, they were dressed all as white, and that was symbolic of the spiritual transformation they experienced from finding healing, forgiveness, reconciliation and hope following a post-abortion healing retreat. So we started in London in 2010, and it was quite a journey. It was quite a journey from... This is some of the babies that have been saved, and I've had a privilege of meeting some of the babies. On the right-hand side, there was a French girl. She was going into Marystopes, and one of the counsellors offered a leaflet at the very last moment, and so she was going for a second appointment. So that baby was seconds away from being physically aborted and losing his life. But was offered a leaflet. She went to the pro-life counselling centre. She chose life for her unborn child, and she was a French national living in London, afraid. Her boyfriend had abandoned her. She was in a very precarious situation. But that message of love and that message of hope at the very last moment, our aim is to be the last sign of hope for anyone considering abortion, the first sign of mercy for anyone who's had an abortion, and that's how we can be a channel of God's grace. And to meet that baby, knowing all this work was worth it, for that one child's life was saved that day. How beautiful and amazing. If you could imagine holding that child in your hands right now, the incredible emotional experience. This is the best experience you can have as a pro-lifer, to see the physical, spiritual fruits of your work, to see babies saved from abortion. I've got no idea of what God can do with you here in Galway, but the whole country is different now. The referendum has happened, and this is a mission field, and we need to evangelise. And the rules have changed because we now have, pretty much abortion on demand in this country. And we still have many pro-lifers and many Christians and many passionate Catholics here who can, if we have a bold mindset. We need to be bold. If we don't have a bold mindset, then how can God work in and through us? For example, if we went out and we go, well, we're afraid of what people think of us, or, somebody might get upset by our signs and, they might get really hurt, and we don't want to hurt their feelings. How can God use us if we have that kind of we need a growth mindset and a bold mindset to think, we need a spirit of fortitude as well, especially if the government try and ban our presence or make it criminal to stand there and pray, just like the United Kingdom. We need to have a winning mindset, and we need to have boldness. You think of St. Patrick. He came to this country. He didn't sit there and go, well, it'd be nice to, convert 2 or 3 people. He got the whole country, and he converted the entire country. And this is the kind of mindset we need. We want the whole country to be pro-life. We want laws like America. We want to see the end of Roe versus Wade, Ireland style here as well. So on the other side, this is a Romanian woman, and she felt like she had too many children, so she was going to the abortion centre. Simple offer of leaflet, offer of help. She changed her mind. She gave our testimony at one of our banquets in London. Just a beautiful story. Now, Lent in 2013 in Ealing, we had 23 women who were scheduled for an abortion going to the abortion centre for an appointment, and they changed their mind during one 40 days campaign. So, wow, like almost every other day, somebody changed their mind. And this is a busy abortion centre, and so you've got 50, 100 appointments a day, and you're standing right by the door offering a leaflet to every single person going in. Even if 1% or even if 0.1% of people change their minds, then cumulatively, that's a huge number of people changing their minds. And by sure, the grace of God has worked powerfully there. So powerfully, the government have banned us for the meantime, but we've still saved people from outside the buffer zone as well. So we had a big rally in London. The bishop came along in 2012, and 500 protesters turned up at the vigil while the bishop was there. And one of the pro-life leaders said that the pro-abortion campaigners knew that the bishop, how important the bishop was for the pro-life movement, because when the bishops support us, then we get the whole church, etc. Whereas the pro-life activists weren't so realising how important the bishop was to it, and this is why we had such a huge protest that day. But sure enough, this abortion centre closed in central London, and we had mass said inside the abortion centre the day after the lease ended. I think it was the 17th of April 2014. So this is a priest saying mass inside the abortion centre the day after the abortion centre closed. And Jesus gives of his own body that others may live in the Eucharist. This is my body given for you. Abortion activists say my body, my choice. They cling to their own bodies that others may die. So this is the spiritual transfer of ownership from a culture of death to a culture of life. Seeing a place close, and we've seen over 100 abortion centres closed. To actually see the place closed was an incredible result. We had 3,000 hours of prayer outside this centre over 6 campaigns over 3 years. So it was a beautiful moment to see that place close. We've also had our own Abby Johnson in the UK. So this is Kevin Duffy. He was a senior Mary Stopes abortion worker. And he left Mary Stopes. He had a conversion. He's now working full-time for the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children. So he's had that journey from a culture of death, supporting the abortion industry, and he's now a pro-life activist. And this is the transformation we want to see in others. They might be post-abortive, but want grace and healing and come and share experiences with the pro-life movement. These are 2 of the abortion centres that have closed. Brighton on the left-hand side, and that's Mary Stopes in central London as well. They've both closed abortion centres in the United Kingdom. So we got an endorsement from Pope Francis shortly after I got married. It was beautiful to share our mission and ministry with others in the church. This is the late-term abortion centre in London. We've had a very powerful witness outside. This is Twickenham Beespass. There's now a buffer zone there. We had one Polish leader called Justina Pasek, and so for 5 years full-time she stood outside offering leaflets, and every week 1 or 2 women would change their minds, not go ahead with the abortion. So she'd probably saved nearly 500 lives from abortion. This was a nun's convent, and the building was sold in the 60s and 70s. It's now a late-term abortion facility with 5,000 to 10,000 abortions there every single year. So this is the challenge that we have in the United Kingdom. I'll share some of the other pictures that we have from some of our campaigns around the world as well. So we've got a new campaign in Basel in Switzerland. They came out, they started the last campaign. They're doing great guns. The pro-life pregnancy centre got vandalised on the first days, but this really fired them up, and they had many of the pro-choice activists come out towards them. But for the first time they stood in public, they were afraid. And many people are afraid at the beginning. How do we overcome fear of standing in public? And when I first went to the vigil, I was afraid. I was thinking, it's like, well, I don't want somebody I work with to know that I'm here, or what do other people think, or what's going to happen? Maybe something terrible is going to happen. And I think, what can we do how can we overcome that fear? But having done this for many years, I'm certainly not afraid now, and we need the grace. We need God's grace. We need his courage. We need his love. And we need to be motivated with purity of intention. We're not there to judge people. We're there to love them. And when we stand out in faith and courage, then amazing miracles can happen, and incredible things can happen beyond our wildest imagination. Never would I have thought that abortion centres would close where we've been. We've now got a huge situation in the UK where they're trying to criminalise silent prayer in public, which is utterly ludicrous. And it's literally thought crimes, which is something from 1984, George Orwell novel. And now everyone is talking about our ministry across the whole world. We've got a story, Isabel got arrested. She's one of our leaders. She saved 100 babies in Birmingham. The abortion centre closed, including the 5 satellite sites. And then she went to stand in the buffer zone and just stand there and pray. And after 4 attempts, the police came along and arrested her twice. And now this is a huge international story. And so we're now having the buffer zones had looked at by judicial review. We now getting these court cases as well, which is getting huge profiles. So, just a small, pure act of love, God can use that for tremendous good. Not only to save the lives of babies, reach out to post-aborted men and women, publicly witness. And we don't know how God can use our prayers, but with prayer, mountains can be moved, miracles can happen, abortion centres can close, the whole country can come abortion-free. And that's the power of prayer. We need to have a big vision of what God can do in and through us. If we have that big vision, we can't just say, well, everyone's apathetic. We need to say, no, we want a spiritual transfer of ownership from a culture of death to a culture of life. And as quickly as pro-life Ireland was decimated, we need the opposite to happen, that a pro-life Ireland is restored, and we need the restoration of pro-life values in this country. And this is how we do it. We start with prayer. And when we start with that foundation, God can work miracles in and through us. This is Bournemouth, and we've had many lives saved from Bournemouth. This is another place that's been challenged a lot. We've now got 10 cases with the buffer zone that is now there, but there was a lady that was outside. They went to Asda, to the coffee shop there. She gave them a big hug, chose life for her baby, and that's another busy BPAS there. They've had a huge battle there, but really great volunteers. There's an oratory in Bournemouth, and the battle continues. So the witness continues in Bournemouth. There's still many good things that can happen. This is Kathy Clubb in Melbourne in Australia, and she has challenged the buffer zone. I've been to Melbourne in Australia. There are 300,000 abortions have happened in the fertility clinic there, and still some great witness in Australia that they've now got national buffer zones there as well. We've got a campaign in South Korea for the very first time. So their law has just changed in South Korea. They've just had their Roe versus Wade moment in South Korea, literally like 2-3 years ago. And so Christians, for the very first time, thinking, what should we do? So sharing the vision, they came to our headquarters in Texas, sharing the vision of what it means to stand in public and to pray. We've got a very good campaign in Taiwan as well, and we've got Protestants and Catholics working together in South Korea. And so they're just starting out, and they're starting out in a small way and just standing in public. Very simple, but they love the mission, and long may things continue in South Korea, and hopefully we'll get a strong nationwide campaign there over time as well. This is Lisbon in Portugal. I've been there twice. 20 to 30% of the abortions happen in the Los Arcos clinic in Portugal. So 20 to 30% of all the abortions in Portugal, they legalised in 2007, happen in this one clinic. And we've had a very good vigil there for 10 years now, over 100 lives saved. And they have a great orphanage centre the leader has there. They also have an Eucharistic Adoration Chapel opposite the abortion centre, and a great pro-life ministry there, like full-time as well. And there's a lot of good that's happened in Lisbon and Portugal over the years. That there's only just become, just had new abortion laws there. But the witness is so powerful that you can literally offer leaflets to every single person going to the abortion centre there, and lots of spiritual fruits have happened over the years. So I'll just show you, this is one of our campaigns in Uganda. I've been to Africa many times, to Nairobi and to Nigeria as well. So they have pro-life laws in many of these countries. 80 to 90% of African countries would be pro-life. There's still a lot of good work to be done. Now in Spain, they had persecution and a national buffer zone law sort of just recently. A lot of people were afraid of being arrested, but the number of prayer vigils has grown, and we've now got 25 prayer vigils all around Spain. So, and the witness there, people are on fire. It's a Catholic country, and many of their volunteers are on fire. We've got a brilliant Mexican leader, and our Mexican outreach director, has just been there 16 cities in 9 days just recently. So I've been going there for years, but now we've really got our act together in Spain, and the country's really becoming strongly on life. They have pro-life marches in Madrid, up to, they've had hundreds of thousands of people on pro-life marches and pro-family marches in Madrid in recent years. So there's so much good to be done there, and just galvanising people, inspiring them and helping them grow as well. So Croatia has been one of our strong countries as well. Went there in 2014. And we now have 40 prayer vigils across Croatia. It's a strong Catholic country, lots of young people, enthusiastic, passionate. 40 Days for Life has been a huge success in Croatia. They've got 5 Centres for Life. They've now got 5 full-time people working for the Croatia for Life organisation. And they've reached people. And this has been a mission that's really worked. It's a simple, effective campaign, but it really works because it resonates with young people. It's a simple, tangible thing that you can do. And what I love about 40 Days for Life is this is just one simple, tangible thing that you can do. And rather than looking at abortion as abstract or looking at it as a political issue, which there's no traction in necessarily, we've had 50 years of political campaigning in the UK, and we still have abortion on demand. But what you can do is you can go out and pray, and you can go out and take a stand, and you can personally make a difference. And that is a sign of courage, it's a sign of hope, it's a sign of trusting God, and it's also in trusting the power of prayer, knowing that with God all things are possible, including the ending of abortion. 40 Days for Life is the beginning of the end of abortion. This is our campaign in Cork, down in Cork. We're going to go there tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to going there as well. And just to really give you guys the vision and the mission of what is really possible. I'll just show you a few more. So this is Bratislava. We've got a good campaign outside the hospital there. And then Slovakia, this is some more from the UK. We're going to Budapest very shortly, and Serbia as well. So we've got campaigns in many countries around the world, and cumulatively that's why we've seen many lives saved. So what I'd like to say about the buffer zone issue of, we now have a challenge in the UK where the national government, we've got buffer zones outside 5 abortion centres, and that's the situation at the moment. The government is on the cusp of bringing in a national law to make it a criminal act to have silent prayer outside of any abortion centre for 150 metres. So this could be a moment of despair. We could throw our hands up in the air going, everything is hopeless, the end is nigh, boo-hoo, etc. Or we could see it as an opportunity, and this is exactly what Isabel has done with the whole arrest and the international story. There's so many different ways that we can witness. Our witness has never been as effective as it has been now. We've had wall-to-wall media coverage. We've had international stories go viral. And our witness has never been so important as it is now. And that's why we need to take a public stand on this issue. And we're going to do a procession to the hospital in just a moment. But just to give you a vision and just to ask God, if we're not in Birmingham, they prayed for one Saturday morning for years. And they did Jericho marches around the abortion centre. They just did a Saturday morning. But when they started doing 12 hours a day for a 40-day time period, and that was just up in the ante, and that's when they saw 100 lives saved, and that's when they saw the abortion centre close, was when they said, well, okay, God, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you absolutely everything. We'll give you our very best, and we'll entrust prayer to you. And actually, cumulatively getting people involved. Firstly, it was, a few hundred people, just a few hundred people was enough to have a round-the-clock prayer vigil there. And that's how God's grace has worked, meeting people where they're at, listening to their stories, engaging with people on the street. And some of them will tell you that you are a ninny and a silly bigot or whatever it is, and that's their opinion. We believe in free speech. They've got the right to do that. But other people will share their stories. They might have had an abortion 10 years ago, and you might be the very first person to help lead them on a post-abortion healing path. And if you're really good at doing pavement counselling, wow, I've seen some people really good at pavement counselling, and they have, it's like every single conversation they have is like, a divinely inspired providential moment of which talking to a young woman. You imagine a young woman going into the abortion centre and you're offering a leaflet, and you are the last sign of hope that person is going to have before that abortion. So in the 10 seconds that 1 to 3% of people who actually stop for 10 seconds to talk to you, there's kind of threefold things to communicate. Number one is that there's help available. Pregnant, worried, we can help. If you need housing, financial help, counselling, any support, any tangible need that you've got, we've got that help and we can provide it for you. And the abortion centre is not going to help you. They're going to abort your baby or do nothing at all. Those are the two options in the abortion centre. But we've got the choices, we've got the alternatives, we've got the options. Number one, help. Number two is that you've got an unborn living baby inside you right now. And, if it's over 10 weeks, it's got fingerprints, it's got a beating heartbeat over a certain age, it's got limbs, it's an unborn child, it's alive right now, and that you are the mother of that child right now. So number two is you've got a baby with you. Number three is that in a certain number of minutes and hours' time, should you go ahead with the abortion, then that baby obviously is not going to be inside your womb anymore, and that baby is going to have a violent death in the event that the abortionist goes ahead with the abortion. Should you go ahead with that operation, and so your baby is at risk of an imminent death very, very shortly. And number four is that we've got people who are praying for you, who care about you, who are here for you, not judging you, that are supporting, knowing your situation, have empathy, compassion, love and support. And communicating all those four things at the very last moment. And not everybody is 100% sure on an abortion. It's an emotional, it's a controversial topic, but reaching out to people in love and support, we've seen tremendous results in the United Kingdom. Over 1,000 people have changed their mind. And they're just the ones that we know about. 90% of people, you never hear the stories of what happened. So that's the most conservative figure ever of the true impact that we've had. Now, we've had the abortion workers come up to us and say, well, your prayers are obviously working because the girls aren't keeping their appointments. Now, when an atheist abortion worker comes up to you and tells you that your prayers are working, what could be more of a sign that actually we're doing the right thing, we have the right strategy, we're doing God's work, and that the prayers are definitely having an impact. Abby Johnson, in a Planned Parenthood conference in the United States, said that the no-show rate at an abortion centre when there's a prayer vigil outside can be as high as 75% when there's a prayer vigil outside. So we can be praying thinking, we're a bunch of loonies, like what is going on, why are we here, what are we doing, this is completely useless. And inside the abortion centre, in their own words, this is not pro-lifers' words, this is the words of Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider in the United States, they are saying every time there's a prayer vigil, there's complete havoc in the abortion centre, that it's having a huge impact. And this is a medium-sized city here. Just this number of people here in this room right now, this is enough people to really change the culture in one city. Sean and I were this morning there witnessing to 500, 1,000 people. What could a whole community of people do? First you get ignored, then you get ridiculed, and then you get persecuted, and then you win. First you get ignored, and then people notice you, and then the opponents come out and start ridiculing you, and then you get persecution, but then if you hold on long enough, you'll see victory. And I believe that you'll see many grace-filled results here in Galway. There's no reason why you can't see many lives saved, and it might not be outside the hospital. It's hard to reach people at the hospital, but we've got the whole community here. We've got churches, schools, reaching people, contacting them, and galvanising the pro-life movement here, getting the pro-life pregnancy centre running, getting it up and running to provide alternatives. There's probably one here already. So just getting things really up and running, and also just calling people to action, calling them to boldness, and just say, look, get out there and pray. You've got nothing to lose. Sacrifice 1 hour of your prayer. And then, also, how do you pray? Okay, 40 Days for Life don't offer instructions for you to pray, like A, B, C, and D. Like, everyone has their own prayer life. It's your own discretion. But, there's lots of different ways that you can pray. We can pray the rosary. We can do devotions, and we can pray reparation for things that happen. We can have priests come and pray deliverance prayers. There's lots of different ways we can get the elderly people praying in the nursing homes. We can get people praying in the prisons. Many people in the prisons are post-abortive women. We can get all those people praying as well who can't physically come to the vigil. And then we can get people praying in adoration, and then the adoration praying for the vigil, and likewise. So there's lots of different ways with a bit of initiative. We need boldness, and we need to entrust this as well to to God and to entrust this work to God, to know, this has been a pro-life country for many years, and we need a roadmap now, following the disaster of the referendum, to bring a culture of life. And what's likely is the government will come in and introduce buffer zones on a national basis. That's almost certain, pretty much certain in the United Kingdom. There's also almost certain in Ireland too, that the government will come down and shut down everything very quickly. Before you can say Jiminy Cricket, they will come in and bring in a national buffer zone. And that's not a moment of despair, again, of, we can't do this anymore, let's give up and go home. That's a moment of hope. And when you're being challenged in all the different ways, we've been challenged from the national government, from the local government, from the national media, from pro-abortion activists, from the abortion lobby, from parliamentarians, from 5-6 different angles we've been challenged in the UK. And when we can get rid of our ego and pride and just get on with it and do what God wants us to do, that's when he can do miracles in and through us. That's when he can bring many blessings. We just have to think, Lord, how can you use me to do your will? How can we reach people, use our initiative? Okay, we might not be able to pray within 100 metres, but we can still pray here, and then we can have people challenge the law. We can try all sorts of different strategies and tactics as well. So let me just bring up some last points here. So just some of the other exciting things that have happened. So saving lives, recruiting people, healing, developing leaders, churches, media, money and politics. These are some of the other things that have happened. This is why it's the best time ever to be a pro-life activist. We've got a year-round course now. We've got a sidewalk outreach course, which you can do online. Anyone can do that now. Unplanned was a huge successful film. If you haven't watched Unplanned, I'd really recommend to watch that. And get involved in apologetics as well. Our book's called What to Say When. It's on the 40 Days for Life website. So what to say when, it's how to get engaged in pro-life apologetics. And we're starting a university as well for training people to be pro-life activists full-time, to help with fundraising, to build an organisation, etc. So going way beyond 40 days to having a year-round vigil, to starting your own organisation, etc. And then we've got a podcast, magazines, and other things in the studio as well. That's why it's the best time ever. So that's my desire in Ireland. Tomorrow we'll be in Cork. So the chances won't be here tomorrow, but this is a chance for you to pray and discern what God's role is for you for the pro-life movement, to be bold, to make commitments like never before, to get that round-the-clock prayer vigil going here, and then from that, many, many graces and miracles can happen. It's happened in the UK, and I really believe that they can happen here in Ireland too. So, last point. So, big thinking pictures and opportunities, helping people, galvanising, seeing the spiritual transfer of ownership of a whole country, and creating leaders as well. What I'd love to see is a network of prayer vigils all around Ireland. We could have 10, 20, 30, 40 prayer vigils all around Ireland, praying for the same cause, praying for an end to abortion here. And we do that publicly, and we do the mission and the outreach, and we learn that, and we develop leaders. Then really big things and great things can happen as well. So I've mentioned the persecution as well, and how that we can go beyond persecution and not get stuck on that issue as well. That God has a bigger picture, and that if he allows something to happen, then he's allowed it to happen, and we can find meaning and purpose. In the gospel it says you will be challenged in court, and you will be challenged, and that will be your opportunity to witness too. So I'll come on to a lot of things, but maybe there's some questions that people want. But I'll finish there, and maybe it's some chance for Q&A. So thank you very much indeed.